What do you think was it about you that made you a champion, that you just kept winning?
May sound odd to people, Pete, but being bullied at school was the best thing that happened to me.
In terms of Michael Jackson, in terms of what he, because I know one of the things he really taught you to think bigger, didn't he?
Yeah,
I mean,
on my case, pain in the butt.
so we are live. This is the podcast. Matt Fiddes, how are you, my friend?
I'm great, Pete. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm very excited because if there's one person that I always would have wanted to have met, it would have been Michael Jackson, right? Which is one thing we'll talk about. But I don't want this to be about your relationship with Michael Jackson. I want this to also just be about you, because I think even if you'd never met Michael Jackson and spent time with him, I think your story is unique on its own, and what you've done and what you're doing and what you're going to do. But for those of us that don't know who you are, just tell us who Matt is and what Matt is all about.
Yeah, I'm just a bullied boy at school who did my best and wasn't very good academically, Pete. To be honest, I could only do so much. My family comes from a very academic background, so my mum is one of 14 children, and they've pretty much all got university degrees. And on my father's side, it's all about get a trade, electrician and plumber or an engineer and so on. So with me, when you're bullied at school, it knocks the confidence out of you. And the boy who was sat next to me in class was training in martial arts. And I just felt like this boy was going to beat me up one day. I need to learn how to defend myself. Back then, I was a really skinny, little, short lad, I didn't shoot up until teenage age. So I went along to this martial arts class. And the first one I tried was jiu-jitsu. But I didn't really take to that, with being thrown over and landing on your back and stuff like that. But in the room next door, there was one called taekwondo. And for people that know me, I'm pretty tall, 6'4", with long legs. So kicking to me was like natural. I could already do the splits for some reason. And I just loved it. I think it comes from my grandfather's side. He was 7 times Irish weightlifting champion and was picked for the Rome Olympics in 1960. So he wanted at least one of his grandchildren to take his path. So I just knew I wanted to do it as a career, Pete, really. I mean,
so did you take to it straight away in terms of martial? Was it like, because I think that's one thing I would love to talk a little bit about, mastery, and because to get really good at martial arts, you have to practice for years, right? But did you know straight away, like, hang on, I really like this and I want to get as good as I could get? What was it that attracted you to it?
God, I was just, do you know what it was, Pete? I think I was so bad at everything else in my life going on at the moment, at a time. I couldn't work things out at school. And I found something I was actually good at. I could do the kicks. And there's a certain element of that adrenaline pump after a workout. I'm sure I know you train very hard, that you feel great. And it's like a drug, I guess. It's like a natural drug, all the endorphins. And I just loved it. And the fact that I had something at last as a kid that I knew I was really good at, and I could apply to use these long legs for something, and my instructor recognized that too and gave me extra tuition. But no, I think for me is, well, initially you just get a thrill of kicking people in the head. It was just fun, not to say that in a nasty way. Just, we had all protective gear on and stuff.
And then did you start competing as well? Because I know with Taekwondo, you go belts, right? So you go to black.
Yeah.
And then how long did it take you to become a black belt?
It's changed now, but back then, so I started martial arts when I was about 6. I was black belt by 12. Things have changed now. You could do it a lot quicker because it's not so much about the time element. It's about what you do within that time. So you can have a martial arts person who's been training 30 years, but they're training once a week or inconsistent, and have somebody who's training 6 months, who's training 4 or 5 days a week. Now, which one's going to be better? It's going to be the person who's training for 6 months. So, things have got better now. Now we understand. Like years ago, Arnold Schwarzenegger fought 4-hour workouts were the way to get big muscles and in shape. Now we know you can get the same results within half an hour of a HIIT workout to produce testosterone, growth hormone stimulation, all those hormones you need to stimulate your muscle. Dorian Yates Mr. Olympia several times over, worked that one out first and educated the world on that. So I think it's progressed a long way now.
Because you obviously worked a whole load of things out, like how to make the franchise, martial arts. But let's just go back. Did you, because I don't know this part of you, did you compete? Did you actually fight? Because I don't know anything about your competitive part of your martial arts.
So the style of martial arts I do is the Olympic style. So there's two types of Taekwondo. You've got ITF Taekwondo, International Taekwondo Federation, which is more semi-contact. And then you've got WTF, World Taekwondo Federation. They used to be one, but they separated due to politics in Korea. It's a Korean martial art. So I did the full contact one. So we had body shields, and it was mainly like you see in the Olympics. I don't know if you see these big body shields on, mainly kicking, very little punching. So I was 6 times British champion with WTF Taekwondo.
So what was that like every year competing in the championships?
Yeah, they got sick of me in the end, if I'm honest.
Why?
Throughout my teenage.
Why? Because you kept winning.
Because they felt someone else should have a go. Yeah, that my height and it was a bit of an advantage, and that's true to say within reason. There's no doubt about that. And what I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I'm just want to kind of understand, because I don't know this part of you now. I feel like I know you. We've had quite a few conversations, but what do you think was it about you that made you a champion, that you just kept winning? May sound odd to people, Pete, but being bullied at school was the best thing that happened to me. Yeah. It gave me hunger and drive to be successful in my martial arts, competing, health, business, and everything, my marriage, the whole thing. I wanted to prove people wrong. I wanted to prove my family wrong, who said that what I was doing was legalized violence. They didn't support, mum and dad didn't support what I was doing. There was another student in the class who was an adult, and he would drive me to lessons. We lived in Swindon, and the lessons moved to Bristol. So he'd pick me up twice a week, and he would have been in his late 20s and drive me to Bristol and train with the best there is, basically. And there's one funny story, actually, is we used to joke, me and him, because it's done on, we're competing, it's done on height a lot of the time, or weight, but sometimes there's exceptions. There's not enough people in the category. So we went for the British Championships, and he drove me to Bristol University, if I remember rightly. And as we went through the categories, I was winning, he was winning, and we jokingly said, "Hey, what if we ended up
going to fight each other?"
Yeah, and I was like 17, 16, something like that. He was 28, 29. Get to the final, bang, it's me and him, and I accidentally broke his rib with a back kick, and then he had to drive me home to my parents, and I had the trophy on my lap.
Oh, wow.
He still remembers the story to this day. I think it's just a drive, Pete. I'm just driven. And is that because of me being bullied at school? I believe so. I think most successful people have had a painful experience.
But I think it's that, and also the fact that you found something that you were good at and you could get better at it. What was it like when you used to compete against people that were better than you? I mean, that probably didn't happen very often, but it must have happened, right? Where people, you knew you were going to take a kick in, but you still thought, I'm going to fight. Because that to me is, go on.
Yeah, the only way you're going to get better is to fight against people that are better than you. If you fight against people that aren't, then you develop bad habits and stuff. So they used to try and pair us up. So that's why we went to Bristol, because we had more of a pool of students. Or would spar against my instructor, and that was a great experience.
And was your instructor like your mentor as well? Did you have like people that, how important was that to have mentors at that type of age?
He was awesome. He just saw in me that I had this drive to make this happen, and he knew my parents didn't support me doing Taekwondo. My parents weren't going to get it was like £2.50 a lesson back then, but he was quite happy not to charge me because he realized that there was someone here that he could be proud of. And then he ended up then let me train with his instructor called Master Levan, and that's the guy I used to go to train with in Bristol. He's Vietnamese, and he used to really put me through my paces. So yeah, there is a certain element to natural genetics, Pete. I have to admit, and I think to say there's not, people would be lying. Like I could not be Arnold Schwarzenegger because people from like an Eastern descent, like Austria, Germany, and stuff, Netherlands, they tend to put on muscle easier than us. Yeah. But I had this flexibility and long legs. I had the height. So when I do a spinning kick, people are like, wow, that's incredible. Like Jean-Claude Van Damme, he's only a short guy, Jean-Claude is, but he's got very, very long legs, which makes it look good. Now, my friend, my training partner, same grade as me, same qualification as me, but when he did a spinning kick, he's got small legs, people weren't impressed. So there's an awful lot about genetic, and also like not everyone can do the splits. If your hips aren't in the right place, it ain't going to happen. You know, and
but you've still got to have a strong mind. And the thing I'm very interested in is the whole thing about mastery, because I think mastery is almost frowned upon in society today. People think you're weird if you're like almost obsessive about something and getting better at something. That obsessive that isn't like the normal obsession with drugs or alcohol or watching Netflix. It's the obsession of just getting better at something. You still have that to this day, right? What's driving you now?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Repetition is the mother of skill. And sometimes when you're doing a punch over and over and again for half an hour, or kick over and over again, we make it more exciting these days. But back then it was old school. And I was able to stick at that because I understood repetition is the mother of skill. Practice, practice, practice. What keeps me going now is the same thing. I just wake up with this drive to want to better myself. My values has moved a little bit. Obviously, in your early 20s, you want the Ferraris and everything else. I've been through all that, done all that. You can't teach all this stuff. I try and teach it to my clients, my franchises, that don't waste your money, invest passive income and stuff. They got to learn the hard knocks way, you know. And what keeps me going now is that I got 6 children. I love them to bits. I lost my parents young, and I want to be able to make sure. I just believe it's going to be a hard world one day for our children and grandchildren, great grandchildren. So I want to build generational wealth that's going to take care of them, produce them income, no matter what's going to go on. Because we just had this, we're in the middle of this real pandemic right now. Now, what's going to happen with global warming and stuff in the future? We don't know. So that's what keeps me going now. That's my motivation, not the Ferraris and all that type of stuff.
So you built a successful career as a martial artist, and then you built a very successful franchise. I mean, you're very well known for the franchise. You did what no one really had done before in this country, right? So just tell us about that.
Never done before. Yeah. So I built up 5 martial arts schools. I studied a American model. So Americans are normally on the cutting edge. So they were 20 years ahead of us. So I worked as a lifeguard for £2.75 an hour, saved enough money. I heard from a friend in America, a particular place, San Francisco, there were multi-millionaires, and I didn't want to compromise standard for money because I was all about standard. That's old school thinking with martial arts. How good can you kick? How high can you kick? How flexible you are? But they assured me, these guys have got standard. They've got thousands of students. They're ahead of our game. And they're making a huge amount of money, because I had no qualifications, Pete. So what am I supposed to do? Like I was working as a gym instructor at 16 for like £3 an hour, then £2.75 an hour as a lifeguard, and I didn't want parents to say I told you so, and me having to try and study again. So I saved enough money, flew to San Francisco, basically modelled somebody. They took me under their wing. They said, "Look, 17 years old. I admire you for even getting out here. Follow me around, take notes down." Study what I do. And I thought this guy was crazy. He was getting up at 4 a.m. every morning. His day was planned out. I would write all the notes back. He said, take it back to England. So if it works, great. If it don't, then you haven't lost anything. I took the systems, basically systemized everything. So we have phones, scripts, everything, manuals, classes are planned in detail. I was the first guy to have music on in lessons. That's a big no-no in the martial arts at the right time. I changed the curriculum to make it more, things have to adapt, and this martial arts has not really changed in 2,000 years. We got guns now and knives and all that type of stuff. So, and we got better education how the body works. So I changed even the bout colors. I was a pioneer in that side of things, but first guy to put people onto what we now call direct debits. Back then it was standing orders. I got a lot of stick for that. There's a saying, lead dog takes all the fawns, but it attracted massive attention. And yeah, to cut a long story short, I went to 700 members within 6 months, earning £80,000 a month at 18 years old. I had 5 schools in North Devon. The nearest town after that was 50 miles away. My mindset was, I can't get an instructor to try going that far away. And then, of course, you know what happened next. I had an individual in my life who said, You need
Yeah.
to
So
franchise.
yeah.
Yeah,
Like I said, your story would be just interesting enough, even if Michael Jackson had an absolute, but not, for me interviewing you, it's just that he did come into your life and he really affected your life. And what I really enjoyed when we talked a few weeks ago on Clubhouse is the narrative that we get is the narrative of the media with most people. And I just felt really privileged to hear about your relationship with someone who's affected everyone all over the world. But just tell us, how did you come across Michael Jackson? That's not something which most people ever had the opportunity to do.
like a fairy tale, right? It's funny.
Yeah.
So those 5 schools I had in North Devon, obviously I was making a lot of money. And I tried to hide it back then, Pete, because that's my mentality. And it's
Yeah.
funny how you get pushed at school to work hard, get good school grades, get a good job, earn money. But when you do earn lots of money, you're trying to hide it, and because you're embarrassed, But I had a journalist who was a parent of 2 students in my school, who was very intrigued. He saw I had 2 floors going on. It was like the building was going to fall down. It was like
Yeah.
insane. And he saw all the martial arts people I used to read about in the martial arts magazines were visiting me to see what this 18-year-old wonder kid was up to. And he just basically said, "Can I do an interview with you for an agency? It's called Southwest News. It's still around now, actually, where they put things on the wire." I was very naive back then. I didn't really know what the heck it was. And I said, "Sure." So he interviewed me right back from the bullied boy right to where I was. He did some calculations on my members, worked out that I was doing very well financially. He put a figure to me, actually, that was a lot greater, because they always do. People always think it's greater, don't they?
Yeah.
And I tried to play it down because I was embarrassed. I thought this guy to go tell the world that I'm making loads of money, and did some pictures. I thought it was for the local newspaper. That was my goal. My 2 goals then was to try and get in the local newspaper, and I wanted to be in the biggest martial arts magazine called Martial Arts Illustrated, which ironically happened over and over and over again throughout my career. So he left the building, and I said to him, he's called Nick Constable. I said, "Nick, do you think I'll make the local paper?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm sure you will." Anyway, 2 days later, it was the front page of the Sun, the Star, the Daily Mail, everything you can imagine. Bully boy becomes millionaire. Picture of me in my sports car. And then I got on the back of that, you know how media works. I
Yeah.
was telling my story then on Trisha. Remember Trisha?
Yes, of course.
Esther Ramson, all your old network. Kilroy.
Yeah, of
And
course.
the show used to be on. What was it called back then? It was GMTV back then.
GMTV, yeah.
Yeah. I did all of them. And then what happened then is Uri Geller's security guard called, and he wanted to meet me. And he wanted to meet me because he was impressed by my story. So I know here in England, he's known for a spoon bender, right? That's the thing. But around the world, he's a mind power, kind of like Tiny Robbins.
Uri Geller is so, I mean, I know about him and some of the stuff he does, which nobody knows about. Well, apart from you and I mean, the guy's a genius. People just think he just bends spoons, but the guy is a genius.
He's world famous. He's famous. He's published 48 books. I mean, the guy's,
yeah.
even now, if you're looking at that, what's Yuri's? He's 73, 74. He looks amazing. I mean, he's just died right. Everything's right. Yuri's just, and he's not just positive. He's just always like that. That's just the way he is.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
and he was obviously friendly with Michael Jackson, right?
They were best friends. And unbeknown to me, I had no idea that they were best buddies. And I think, so he wants to do this video where we could give away to kids. He was going to focus on mind power for the kids to not be bullied at school. And I was going to do some self-defense moves. And we're going to give it away free to all the kids through the government in the UK. That was the first goal. We became very close friends. He went on to be godfather of my eldest daughter, Madison, along with Mark Lester and people like that. And,
Mark Lester, the osteopath from Cheltenham, who was Oliver in the colour film of Oliver. It's just so strange. Who was Michael Jackson's friend as well, right?
Same age, grew up together, child star. It wasn't just Oliver. He was big time with Black Beauty, if you remember.
Yes.
Black Beauty.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. Dun, 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 dun.
To the Pauper was a huge success as well. When I'm with Mark, he still gets fan mail every day now. He still gets requests for autographs. And please, sir, can you give me more? He gets very irritated when I ask him that when he stays around here in the mornings. But yeah, so bizarre life. But Yuri, I felt he wanted to. I was already financially secure, Yuri's a very intelligent man, as you pointed out. And I felt that he wanted to play someone in Michael's life, because when you're at that level of fame, you haven't got many people you can trust. And Michael lost his long-time security that they retired. And I have access to, back then I had access to 50 to 100 instructors who could help out. And not just that, Michael Jackson was a massive martial arts fan. He was already a black belt when I met him. Joe Jackson, his father, made sure all the brothers trained in Kung Fu. So he uses martial arts in his dance, Pete.
Yeah.
So he wanted to progress to his second dan, which I did. I trained him and Mark to second dan in the hotel suites over the years.
Did you ever stop and look at both of them and go, what am I doing here?
Well, I didn't, you know. When I look back now, I do now. I get it now. But back then, I just used to feel like the world was treating me bad, Pete. Like, especially the local town I lived in with 30,000 people called Barnstable.
Yeah.
When you're 18 years old and you're hanging out with Michael Jackson and Uri Geller, Britney Spears, you know, and all these big famous names, Daryl Hannah. And I wondered why people thought I was a bit weird, driving around in a Ferrari with my perm tan, my top off, my baby oil on my abs. You know, I get it now, but back then when you're 18, you know, at early 20s, he was just my friend, and that was it. And Yuri is my best friend. He's like a father figure to me. You know, I talk to him daily, voice notes and things, and I just didn't. The only time it became really apparent, I think we talked about this, was I was getting married on my first marriage, my rehearsal marriage, and I say that because we got on really well with me and my ex-wife, and I had to organise my stag do. She had her hen do, then it's time for my stag do, and we wrote down the list of my friends, and we looked at the list and looked at each other and thought, this ain't gonna happen. I haven't got a friend here that's normal. They're all mega stars. You know, there's only one person who didn't need security and a planning and a recce the day before. I just went to Super Bowl with him in the end. That's when I really clicked on. But no, I think it's difficult for other people to relate to me, and I couldn't relate to them because people my age were going out nightclubbing and pubs.
So why do you think it happened? Do you think it was just luck, or? I think for you that you just work very, very hard, and I think somehow the universe rewards you when you step outside the box. Sorry?
I really believe in the law of attraction, Pete.
Yeah. I
do. And there's too many things I can't explain that happen. As long as I put my mind to it and I focus on it, I make things happen. And the law of attraction, if you're only, like I remember Arnold Schwarzenegger used to say, you're only 3 handshakes from anyone in the world.
Yeah.
And the whole Michael thing and Yuri and all that network clearly had a profound impact on 18-year-old Matt, because you mix him with billionaires and world famous people, and there's a lot of trust, a lot of secrets you have to keep, and I'm not hanging out with the people who are trying to work things out at 18 years old.
They've worked it out. Yeah.
They worked it out.
So tell me a little bit in terms of Michael Jackson, in terms of what because I know one of the things he really taught you to think bigger, didn't he? I mean,
on my case, pain in the butt sometimes to me. His ambition was unbelievable. I was in his hotel suite, and he's sick of people asking questions about him. That's all that happens all the time. So he's very inquisitive. So, how's your business doing, Matt? Great, I've got 5 schools. Only 5? Why can't you do more? So, well, the next town's 50 miles away, Mike. I can't get an instructor there to go there. He said, sure you can. If I can sell records all around the world from Gary, Indiana, and fill out stadiums, and one of all those children in a 2-bed house, tiniest house ever. And like his dad was at the steel mill with no shoes on and stuff like that. Then you can get some of the truck travel 50 miles. And I said, well, I can. He said, you can. It's called franchising. Then I threw him another objection. I said, yeah, but that's never been done in the martial arts world before, ever. He goes, that's right. That's exactly why you've got to do it. And he just wrote down on his napkin about how it works, where they take a percentage, you mentor them, you give them a business in a box, because he was franchised this brand all around the world. I mean, Pepsi was the biggest deal ever, you probably remember. And he introduced me to his franchise lawyer at the time, and he would keep me very accountable. So I was nervous when Michael used to ring me, because I knew he'd be saying, how many schools have you opened up? How many students? Sometimes I feel like a right idiot, Pete, because I'd say, I've took on 40 students, I've opened up one school. And I have to throw the question back at him. So I say, Michael, how do you get along? And he would say, oh, great. I'm just about to, I'm in talks of signing an $80 million deal for touring Korea. And I'll come off the phone, I'm thinking, oh dear. Because I always had this vision of him with his gold-plated phone at Neverland like this, you know?
Yeah.
And me on my Argos 20-pound phone, plastic phone with a dodgy signal. But he kept me very accountable. And I think it's so sad that the world don't get to see this side of him. You don't get to be the most famous man in the world. There's no doubt about it. You know lots of famous people, Pete. I've mixed with some megastars, if you want to call them that, other than Michael. I've never seen anything like the reaction to Michael Jackson. You don't get to be the most famous, the most respected, talented, dance, singing, and investing. He was very clever at with the music catalogs and things, unless you know what you're doing. He wasn't your average artist who just sang and danced. So he had his talent side of. Now, he didn't believe in talent actually, because he believed you make your own talent. I used to annoy him sometimes because he would be dancing for 4 hours a day and singing all the time. All his brothers used to tell me that Michael Jackson never stopped being Michael Jackson, the superstar. He lives and breathes show business. He never left it go. Whereas they did. They would go off and have their families and have family time. He just loved show business, Michael did. He loved that thrill of the audience, and he lived for his fans. But the Joe Jackson side was in him, the ruthless businessman.
Yeah.
The man who would be leading. I'd be at a business meeting with him, and he would put his glasses on in a shirt and tie, and he would just be leading that room. He knew exactly what he was doing. And then 2 hours later, he could be in his pajamas watching Bart Simpson with me. And then in the evening, he would be in front of 80,000 people, and I wonder, who the heck is that? That's not my friend Mike. Where's he come from?
Yeah. I saw him at Wembley in 93, I think, or 94. I think it was probably 90. No, I don't know, 93, 94. It was just Wembley. Yeah.
Dangerous.
Yeah, dangerous.
Yeah, 93. Yeah.
93.
Yeah, 93. Yeah, we'll be 93.
It was just the most incredible thing. I saw the Rolling Stones at Wembley. I'd seen other bands, but there was something about Michael Jackson that I was completely mesmerized by the whole thing. I can remember it like it was yesterday. You know, it was just like there was something really special. But again, you know, a unique element of you is the challenging childhood, which he obviously had, and wanting to prove, but also wanting to get better. He obviously wanted to always be better at what he did. What was that like to you when, you know, when he passed away? I mean, was that a surprise to you, or where were you when you found out?
I spoke to him 2 days before on the phone. I mean, of course, I'm not going to lie, Pete, I think it's quite out there now. We were all concerned for Michael's health. All of us were. I was with him when he announced the concerts. And
the 50 tours, right?
yeah, in March in 2009. And then I went back on the Thursday. Mark Lester and him went to watch Oliver, the West End show, and it was chaos. They couldn't really enjoy it. They did that because you got Mark Lester there, who was Oliver, and you got Michael Jackson sat next to him. And then when they got back, I'm so glad I went. Mark called me up and said, come up to the hotel. Michael's flying back, and then he's going to be busy. We won't see him again until July for the This Is It tour. All the shows were sold out by that point. So I drove up to the hotel, and we had Michael's favorite meal, fish and chips. We just eat it on the floor. That's the way Michael works. And he seemed awfully concerned to me about the shows. And he turned to Mark and he said to Mark, if anything happens to me, I get shot on stage, will you promise you look after my kids? Because Mark's godfather to all three of his children. And I said to Michael, come on, you're going to be fine. The public love you. You just sold out your first 10 in 3 minutes. And then they had to extend it. But he was concerned. And when I went to leave that day, I hugged him and he was just bones. It was not much to Michael, you know. And then I would hear all the time from the inner circle that we had that things weren't going well in the States. He wasn't turning up to rehearsals.
Yeah.
There was a lot of doctors hanging around, as always, trying to get what they want. And we had communication problems with Michael real hard. to get hold of him. There was no access for him to get to a phone in the house he was staying with. And that was part of the problem when the doctor was trying to call the ambulance. There was no landline, and no one really knew where they were, and that was the issue there. So I didn't think he was going to die, no, Pete, but I thought he would not do the shows. I thought maybe he'd do one show and then call it sicky on it, basically, be ill and not be able to do it. I mean, the guy was 50 years old. He's not your average performer. If he's just standing there and singing, it's different. But he like loses a lot of weight every night because he just puts his all into Billie Jean and Thriller, and it's like a 4-hour workout. So I didn't think he was going to die. I thought he was going to cancel the shows. But then I knew his financial situation. He was asset rich, cash poor. And I knew there was a lot of pressure on him. And the people around him at the time didn't really have, there was a lot of money involved. He was a commodity, is that the word? Or I don't know, like a product to a lot of people. To us and to me and Mark, he was our friend. So he called us on a Tuesday night. He called me first. He actually wanted Mike Lester's phone number. It's not unusual for Michael to lose numbers and stuff. It wasn't very that organized. Managers would change. In my time, 11 different managers. And he said, I want to speak to Mark. And then he asked me, he said, do you know where Joe Jackson is? He didn't used to call him Dad. And I thought, that's strange. Why would Michael be asking for Joe? I never heard of that before. And I knew where Joe was. Joe was in Vegas at the time. So I managed to source out Joe, the number for Michael. And I gave it. Now, Michael left the voice message on Joe Jackson saying, and I asked Michael, I said, Michael, what's up? And he said, I need Joe Jackson to come here to California. He's the only one who can sort this situation. He swore this situation out. And he left a long message. Now, sadly, Joe didn't pick that message up until after Michael passed away. Then after that, he called Mark and begged Mark to come over to California. He said he needed us. But we all got kids, got our own lives.
Yeah,
he was going to die. If we thought he was going to die, we'd be on the next plane. And we were worried that if we did get out there, we wouldn't be able to get to him because we were hearing all these stories of the family trying to get to him and they couldn't get past the gates because the security were not his people. It was the record company, the concert peoples that put everything in place. So we wish we went, Pete. We wish we went. Of course we did.
Yeah.
But you get to live with it. But it's not like a normal friend who dies and you go through a bereavement process. I mean, only yesterday I get fans. They send me stuff. Someone sent me this Thriller thing through the post. I get stuff all the time sent to me. There isn't a day goes past I don't get asked about Michael. After he died, me, his brothers, and some of his friends, we had counselling because everywhere you went, your music was being played. Yeah. People want to ask you about what the hell happened, and they all loved him. And then things started to happen. Then, like he wanted the West End show. He tried to get the show commissioned about his music, and no one wanted to know. When he died, it was the first thing that was there. For their life, it's that West End show. So yeah, it's difficult. Plus, I was known as the martial arts guy. When he dies, I was forever printed about as former bodyguard to Michael Jackson. He used to drive me nuts. I used to say to my PR people, "Can't we change this? I've got my own career here, my own business." And they said, "Matt, I'm sorry, you're going to be this shadow for the rest of your life." I mean, I know Alvis' bodyguard. He's got the same problem. He's learned to live with it. I'm proud of it now. The guy was a good friend to me. He's a legend. And if it wasn't for him, would I have franchised? Probably not. He taught me every element of franchise, marketing, PR. I got such an education from Michael, more so than I'd ever got from school. Not just from him, actually, Pete. He had this inner circle of the most powerful people on earth. When you're Michael Jackson, you attract anyone. You got access to anyone you want. Head of Disney, you could get on the phone within 5 minutes. They're calling back. And same with me. Rubbed off on me, actually. Anybody would ring me back just because my mate was Michael. Now, when he died, I lost a lot of friends. And then I had a bit of reality, like going to Euro Disney was a bit of an experience. I had to queue up for the first time, where I was so used to going there with Michael doing things, and we're shut down shops and going the underground tunnels at Euro Disney and pop up at the rides. Well, I had to do it the old-fashioned way. I said to my wife, "This is a bit different, isn't it?" But great guy, misunderstood, but ruthless businessman. But his inner circle, like Muhammad Al-Fayed and people like that, the owner of Harrods, if you mix him with them at a young age, your life is going to be impacted on that for sure.
So I would definitely encourage people to watch the film that you were a part of called Chasing the Truth, which I would just encourage people to watch. And there's lots of information there about about your story. But just tell us what you're up to now in terms of, I know you do a lot of coaching, but tell us what you're working on right now.
I sort of expanded my franchise name. So we have 7 franchise networks. The most famous one, obviously, is the martial arts, which is the biggest of its kind in the world. But then I franchised other businesses too. Now I teach people how to franchise their business. So it happened naturally just before the pandemic. I did a show called Rich House, Poor House, which is a bit like Undercover Millionaire. And you saw Houses, and it was a huge hit. And after that show, we did 2 episodes of that show. I was bombarded with businesses saying, "Can you mentor me? Can you teach me how to do this?" And it was huge. I think we had like 20,000 messages the next day. We couldn't even cope with it. So I thought to myself, you know what? When I get to 40 years old, I love helping people, Pete. I love that thrill of changing someone's mindset, or stop a kid being bullied and then making them successful. And when they get their black belt, the parents are crying, the grandparents are crying. It's all emotional, and making people financially secure. That's what motivates me, changing lives. So now I teach people. I still run the organization. We're still going to expand globally, and all of them are pushing that forward more than ever now. I teach people how to become financially free, scale and grow their businesses through franchising. And it's been a big success. I mean, I've just naturally, just on the back of Clubhouse, I've been getting people contacting me, wanting me to mentor them and go forward with that. So I enjoy it. It's not about the money. I just love helping people. You're pretty much the same as me, Pete, aren't you? It's nothing like changing someone to make them financially secure, is there? Or their belief structure. We're all programmed and conditioned in a certain way. And to change that mentality and seeing someone to be a success is the greatest reward in the world. So that's my mission now, to try and franchise many businesses out there and help people grow and be successful and be financially independent. So if another pandemic comes around again, and I believe it will, because the media we know loves them, or world crisis or whatever, I want people to have things in place like mutual funds, stocks and shares, investment property, businesses, company. I call them the 5 balloons. Through scale and franchising their business is the first step to get 6-7 figure income. So that's what I'm passionate about now.
And tell me, how do people contact you if they want to find out more about what you're doing?
If they go to www.mfinnercircle.com, then they'll be able to contact me through there. Just fill out the form, contact me through there. And if they just want to say hello and contact me, they can. My social media, official Matt Fiddes on Instagram, DM me. I always take time to DM everyone back.
So I think for me, just in kind of summary, what you represent to me is just, doesn't matter what's happened, it's what you do with what happened. And you obviously use that as fuel to move forwards and to get better. And ultimately having to go through that to then realize that life is about giving back and helping others. Right. And
I think the biggest thing people should take away from this too is, which I teach, don't worry about things you can't control. Don't stay up all night worrying about something that we can't control. What the government's doing right now. We can't control the pandemic. We can only control what we're thinking ourselves in our mind. And even with the restrictions upon our lives at the minute, don't moan about it. We can't do anything about it. Look for what can you do within those restrictions, new opportunities. How can you help people? How can you give value to get value back? And I think people just freak out too much, and there's no point moaning about things you can't control. That sums it up in my opinion.
So listen, I mean, we could literally talk all day. All day. I can't believe we've been talking for like nearly 50 minutes. You know, it's just time flies. I think when you're having fun, I'd really encourage everyone to connect with Mark. If you've enjoyed this, feel free to share it. Give me some feedback. I'll pass it on to Mark.
To connect with Mark. That's the wrong one. That's Mark Lester.
Who's Mark? Yeah, who's this Mark person? Who are we talking about?
You know, connect with Matt.
We can connect with. You can connect with who you want, but if you want to connect with Matt, I was on Clubhouse this morning I have to tell you, at 3:30 this morning, and then I started my own room at 5, which went on for I told you 3.5 hours. So yeah, I've been awake for a long time. Matt,
you're smashing it on there, Dave. You really are.
Yeah, well, listen, Simon. I mean, listen. Thank you so much. I've really, really enjoyed, just hanging out with you, and I can't wait to get this out into the world and for people to kind of see the world through your eyes and what you've done. So thank you so much, Adam. Thanks so much. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
See you soon.